For 12 years, I was her backup plan. No title, no recognition, just endlessly catering to her. Drunk, she'd lean on me. Sober, she loved someone else. It wasn't until she heartlessly cast me aside for someone new that I finally met the one who only had eyes for me. And when she came back, kneeling and begging, I calmly said no, choosing to cherish the person who truly valued me. I've loved Ava for 12 years, watching as she went from one boyfriend to the next. Just when everyone thought I was finally about to tame the beautiful, wild social butterfly, she blocked me for another guy. A little over a month later, she stood in a sea of roses, her cheeks flushed, asking if I could give her another chance. I pulled a brilliant red wedding invitation from my bag and handed it to her with a smile. "I'm getting married next week," I said. "I hope you can be there." Ava dropped a message in our group chat. "The usual spot tonight. I have an announcement." My best friend, Ethan, was the first to reply. "Whoa, so formal. Is our resident queen of hearts finally ready to settle down?" It wasn't the first time he'd teased her about it. Usually, Ava would laugh and tell him to get lost. This time, however, she replied with a single word. Yep. That one little word landed like a boulder in a calm pond, sending ripples everywhere. The quiet group chat instantly blew up. No way. Am I seeing things? Is the heartbreaker herself finally done playing the field? Has our boy James finally made it to the finish line? Let me break it down. Miss Astor hasn't been seeing anyone lately, not even flirting. The leading man has to be James, case closed. After all, everyone's seen how devoted he's been to her all these years. Congrats, James. The fact that I was in love with Ava was never secret. My special treatment, my favoritism, it was written all over my face for anyone to see. And she, in turn, always saved her unique brand of tenderness and patience just for me. Ava didn't add anything else, which felt like a silent confirmation of all the jokes about us. After all, though she'd cycled through countless boyfriends over the years, the one constant was me, always by her side. Anyone would have assumed that my years of devotion were finally about to pay off. Ava was the one who'd organized the get-together, but ironically, she was the last to arrive. Trailing behind her was a shy, introverted-looking guy. He couldn't have been very old, but he was strikingly handsome, with delicate, flawless features. He seemed nervous and out of place, probably from being thrown into a room full of strangers. He looked exactly like I had 12 years ago, the first time I was brought to the Astor family's estate. The noisy private room went silent, as if someone had hit a mute button. Everyone froze, their eyes locked on the two of them. Ava turned and casually looped her arm through the new guys. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my boyfriend, Oliver," she said. Her eyes never left him as she spoke, a deep tenderness in her gaze that wouldn't fade. She looked like a girl experiencing her first real love. Sensing the awkward tension, Oliver gave a small wave. His voice was soft and clear, tinged with a bit of shyness. "Hey, everyone." Ethan was the first to break the silence, letting out a loud, theatrical laugh. "Nice one, dropping a bomb on us like that. What did you get a boyfriend on the sly?" Even as he spoke, he kept glancing over at me. He was trying to be subtle, but we'd been friends for too long. I could see the concern in his eyes. Was he worried I'd cause a scene, that I'd just fall apart? I looked down, slowly swirling the amber liquid in my glass. My mind was completely blank, and a bitter taste filled my mouth. From the very beginning, my relationship with Ava had been stuck in that gray area, more than friends, but not quite love. She'd never given me any reason to feel justifiably jealous. I had no right to be upset. Over the years, Ava had jumped from one relationship to the next, changing boyfriends constantly. But she had never formally introduced a single one of them to our friend group. That gesture, or lack thereof, spoke volumes, and we all knew it. Ava leaned into Oliver's side and said with a smile, "We've been together for a couple of months. Oliver's a little shy, so please don't scare him off. 12 years ago, it had been the same group of friends and almost the exact same words. James is a little shy, so don't scare him." Only back then, the James in question was me, fresh from a small town in Georgia. I was brought to the sprawling, high-walled Astor estate on the outskirts of New York City, and my thick Southern accent made me an easy target for ridicule. It was Ava who took my hand and pulled me into their circle. I was 14, and that girl with a radiant smile instantly chased away all my fear and uncertainty. She became my guiding light. Out of consideration for me, everyone kept their reactions muted. No one got too excited. After more than a decade of friendship, if they had to choose sides, they would instinctively lean toward me, not this new guy Oliver. Besides, I had always been the guy everyone assumed Ava would end up with. The atmosphere in the room grew thick and heavy. Oliver was clearly even more on edge. He kept his head down, tugged lightly on Ava's sleeve, and whispered, "Ava, I don't think they like me very much." The way he said her name, so deferentially, made my brow furrow. An indescribable awkwardness settled in my chest. Back when we were kids, Ava's favorite prank was to sneak up behind me. She'd either snatch whatever I was holding or leap onto my back, wrapping her arms around my neck and refusing to let go until I called her sis. She was only 2 months older than me, but she was clever and mischievous, and once she started, she never gave up. I was always the one to surrender. I'd have to wait until my face was beet red before I'd reluctantly mumble sis, and only then would she let me go, completely satisfied. Back then, she still had a youthful innocence. Around other guys, she always maintained an air of poise and reserve. Just as Ava was about to comfort Oliver, a loud crash echoed from the corner. Someone had dropped a glass. It was Dominic, my frenemy. His normally handsome face was taut with anger, his voice tight. "Ava, what the hell have you been treating James as all these years?" Ava's expression soured. Her eyes scanned the room before finally settling on me. She pressed her lips together, then spoke slowly. "I'm not sure where the misunderstanding came from, but I've only ever seen James as a little brother." "Just a little brother?" I repeated the words silently, wondering if she'd forgotten. Just last New Year's, we were all celebrating at the Astor's estate. Ethan had bought a ton of fireworks and was trying to get everyone to go outside. But Ava had stayed put next to me, linking her arm through mine with a lazy smile. "I'm not going. James is staying here with the family." Someone nearby had chimed in. "Since when is James part of the family?" The guy was laughing as he said it, and Ava grabbed a clementine and tossed it at him, laughing even harder herself. "What are you talking about? He's always been. James is my childhood fiancé." And now, just a few months later, she could look me right in the eye and call me her little brother without a hint of irony. I pressed a hand to my chest. It ached, a deep, uncomfortable throb, but it wasn't as crushing as I would have expected. There was even a strange sense of relief, as if a question I'd been asking for years had finally been answered. It felt like when I was 14, and I mailed a story I was incredibly proud of to my favorite literary magazine, only to hear nothing back for years. Then, 12 years later, a letter finally arrived. It was a simple form rejection. Oh, I had thought. So that's the answer. The initial hope and excitement had been ground down to nothing by the long, silent wait. That initial spark of passion had been extinguished by time. My feelings for Ava were the same. It wasn't that the love was gone, but the expectation of what it could be had vanished. So whatever the outcome, it couldn't really hurt me anymore. Dominic looked like he was about to say something else on my behalf, but I put a hand up to stop him. He shot me an angry glare, muttering one word through clenched teeth. "Pathetic." Then he turned and stormed out. It was awkward for me to stay, too. I grabbed my phone from the table and followed him out. My hand was on the doorknob when Ava's voice stopped me. "James, get back here." I turned and gave her a small smile. "You guys have fun, sis. I'm gonna go check on Dominic." It was the first time in all these years I'd ever called her that so easily, but I could see her face fall. Ava froze for a second, her expression turning icy. I said, "Get back here." This time I didn't obey. As I pushed the door open, I heard the sharp sound of glass shattering behind me. The door clicked shut, sealing all the chaos inside. Saying I was going to find Dominic was just an excuse. We'd been like oil and water ever since our school days. In gym class, he'd peg dodgeballs at me. I'd finish a big art project, and he'd find a way to shred it with scissors. He'd hide my textbooks and stuff my desk with bugs or trash. Even as we got older, we never stopped disliking each other. So even though he defended me, I wasn't exactly touched, and I certainly had no plans to bury the hatchet. I was planning on heading straight home, but I saw Dominic leaning against the wall outside, smoking a cigarette. When he saw me, he stubbed it out and tossed it in the bin. "I came with Ethan," he said. "You heading out? Mind giving me a lift?" I sighed but agreed. In 12 years, this was one of the very few times we'd ever been alone together without arguing. When I pulled up to his house, Dominic didn't get out. He just sat there in the passenger seat. After a long moment of silence, he finally mumbled, "That kid, Oliver. He's a lot like you were back in the day. So what if he was? He could never be me, and I could never be him." I didn't want to talk about it anymore. I got out and gestured for him to do the same, ignoring the curses he muttered under his breath. I got back in, hit the gas, and turned into the driveway of the house right next to his. I lived next door to Dominic, and the Astors lived in the house next to mine. Our whole neighborhood in Greenwich was full of either new money or old, powerful families. I had just parked the car when Dominic called, telling me to check iMessage. I opened it up. The group chat was going wild with celebratory money transfers. Ava had already added Oliver to the chat, and everyone was falling over themselves to send cash gifts and congratulate her. I sent one too. The instant it was delivered, Ava kicked me from the group. A second later, a private message from her popped up. "I'm sorry, James. Your being around makes Oliver uncomfortable. Let's not talk for a while." I pressed my lips into a thin line. It felt like a physical blow to the chest. After a long moment, I typed back a single word. "Okay." The instant I hit send, the message failed, marked by a glaring red exclamation point. She had already blocked me. 12 years. From awkward teenagers to the men we were today. 12 years of friendship, and it was all erased by a 2-month fling. I just stared at that red exclamation point for a long, long time. My eyes burned, but I couldn't manage to cry. The old Ava used to grab my arm and say with a laugh, "James, after my parents, you're the most important person in the world to me." The Ava of today told me, "Your being around makes Oliver uncomfortable. Let's not talk anymore." It was pathetic. I loved Ava, but I was never pushy. I never crossed any lines. I didn't even dare say anything remotely flirtatious. The moment I found out she had a new boyfriend, I would always take a step back, terrified that my feelings would become a burden to her. But every time I did, she would get upset. Her first boyfriend was my roommate at Columbia. He knew exactly how I felt about her. Then one day, they showed up in front of me, holding hands, my roommate grinning from ear to ear. It was like he'd forgotten all those nights we'd spent drinking, calling each other brothers. He looked me right in the eye and said, "James, man, I owe you one. I never would have gotten a chance with Ava if it weren't for you." It was a windy day. I stood on the sycamore-lined path outside the library, feeling like a complete idiot. It was only then that I realized he'd only befriended me to get closer to Ava. After all, what teenage guy could resist a girl who was not only gorgeous, but also an Astor? I started avoiding him, and I avoided Ava too. Their relationship lasted all of 3 days. The next time I saw him, his eyes were bloodshot with rage. He stormed up to me and yelled, "Ava dumped me. Are you happy now?" I was baffled. I hadn't done a thing. Why was he coming at me? But since he asked, I decided to be honest. "Yeah," I said. "Actually, I am." That night, Ava insisted on taking me out for a nice dinner. She had a wicked glint in her eye. "You've given me the cold shoulder for 3 days," she said. "Can you stop being mad at me now?" I answered her seriously. "I'm not mad. You're dating someone now. It's better if we keep our distance, for everyone's sake." "But I only said yes to him because you two were friends," she pouted. "If James likes someone, I like them. If James doesn't, I don't either." She said it with such conviction, without a trace of doubt. After that, she made a point of never dating anyone I knew. She also never brought any of her boyfriends around our group of friends. But in the elite circles of New York, the world is small. Whenever she'd bring a new guy to an event, she was bound to run into someone we knew. Even if she never said a word to me, the news always found its way back to me eventually. Every holiday, when we'd all get together, someone would inevitably tease her. "You've had so many boyfriends. When are you going to bring one home for us to meet? She'd toss a shrimp she'd just peeled into my bowl, steal the one I'd just finished, and say casually, "None of them have been serious enough." Some of her boyfriends would reach out to me directly. A few were polite, begging me to back off. Others were less so, sending threats. But the message was always the same: stay away from Ava. After a while, I got the picture. I didn't have to do anything. My mere presence next to her was a threat. That's why I decided to respect Ava's decision to cut me off for Oliver's sake. What I couldn't understand was why she had to remove me from the group chat. About an hour later, Ethan kicked my bedroom door open. When he saw me just sitting on the edge of my bed, he scratched his head. "Damn, man," he said. "I was worried you were going to do something stupid. Had to come check on you." I just glared at him and said nothing. After a few minutes, he tried again, speaking carefully. "James, Ava's just not thinking straight right now. Everyone can see that kid Oliver is just a carbon copy of you from back in the day." When she snaps out of it, he didn't finish the sentence, but I knew what he was going to say. "Give her another chance." I frowned, ignoring his unspoken question. "Ethan," I said, "I think I'm going to head down to Georgia for a bit, to my grandma's old place. When my mother was pregnant with me, my father's business was failing. He was on the verge of bankruptcy. They consulted some kind of mystic who told them the problem was the baby. Me. The man said I was bad luck, that my birth would ruin my father's fortune. But my mother was already 9 months along. It was too late to do anything. So, the day I was born, I was sent down to Georgia to live with my grandmother. My grandmother was the one who named me James. She said she hoped it would bring me a peaceful life. But she passed away when I was 14, leaving me all alone. Back then, I always told myself it was okay. At least I had Ava. Even if we couldn't be together, I was still the most important person in her life, besides her parents. I thought that was enough. But reality just slapped me across the face. It was the rainy season in Georgia, and a fine mist hung over the rolling hills. I held an umbrella as I walked down the familiar stone path. At the end of it stood the old, 3-story house where I had spent the first 14 years of my life. My mother always called my grandmother stubborn. Her daughter had married into a wealthy family, but she refused to leave her home and move to the city. But it was that stubborn old woman who gave me the happiest childhood I could have asked for. The rain was light, a soft patter on my umbrella. A vendor on a tricycle pedaled slowly down the street. A recording from a small speaker calling out, "Fresh peaches. Get your fresh Georgia peaches." A man holding an umbrella stepped out of the house next door, waving the vendor over. His eyes landed on me, and he did a double take. "James, what are you doing back here? It's not the anniversary yet." I managed a weak smile. "Just felt homesick. Thought I'd stay for a few days." His eyes fell to my suitcase, and a look of pity crossed his face. "Kid, why'd you come all this way alone? Your grandmother's house has been empty for years. With all this rain, it's bound to be damp and musty. Why don't you stay with us for a bit? My daughter, Anna, is home for a visit. You two can keep an old man company." With that, he took my suitcase with one hand and ushered me toward his house with the other. He set me up in his daughter Anna's room. Watching Mr. Sullivan bustle around, I was reminded of what true Southern hospitality felt like. It was almost overwhelming. I tried to refuse multiple times, but he just put on a wounded expression. "What's the matter? My old house not good enough for a city boy like you?" I had no choice but to accept. Anna's room was neat and organized. One entire wall was a bookshelf crammed with books, architectural models, trophies, and academic awards. It was exactly what you'd expect from someone who'd been a student her whole life. Anna was 2 years older than me. We weren't exactly close, but we weren't strangers either. We'd grown up together in this small town, and we'd both ended up at the same Ivy League school, she on a full scholarship. I, on the other hand, had only gotten in because of a hefty donation from my father. That night, Dominic called me. His voice was low. "Ethan told me you went down to Georgia." I just grunted in response. After a pause, he mumbled, "Why didn't you say anything? I could have used a trip out of the city myself." I'd known about Dominic's crush on Ava since we were in high school. I stood by the window, watching the rain fall. "No thanks," I said flatly. "A Broken Hearts Club trip with the two of us doesn't sound like a good idea." "Idiot, Dominic snarled and hung up. I hadn't seen her in years. The sweet, innocent girl I remembered had grown into a poised, graceful young woman. Anna stared at me for a moment, a flicker of some unreadable emotion in her eyes. "Long time no see," she said, her voice as clear and bright as I remembered. I smiled back. Yeah, it's been a while. Now that the owner of the room was back, there was no reason for me to stay. I started to say my goodbyes to Mr. Sullivan, but he just frowned in thought. "You haven't been back in ages," he said. "Your grandmother's house can't be in any shape to live in. Why don't you let Anna go over with you, just to help you get settled?" I was about to protest, but Anna cut me off. "Of course," she said. "I can go help him clean up a bit." An unmarried man and woman staying in the same house wasn't exactly proper, especially in a small town like this. But they were both so insistent, I couldn't find a polite way to refuse. So, I let Anna come with me to my grandmother's place. Even though no one had lived in the old house for years, I'd always paid for a caretaker to handle upkeep and repairs. So other than a thick layer of dust, the place was in surprisingly good shape. After we finished cleaning, I sat on the front steps, just staring out at the fields. The air was fresh and clean after the rain, and big, puffy clouds drifted across a brilliant blue sky. Compared to the perpetual gray haze of New York, a view like this felt like an incredible luxury. Anna handed me a bottle of water. I looked up and took it with a smile. "What brought you back all of a sudden?" She laughed. "My dad tricked me into it. What about you?" The warm sun fell on her, making her skin glow. Anna was truly beautiful, but in a different way than Ava. Ava's beauty was loud and dazzling. Anna's was quiet and gentle, with a scholarly air about her. I averted my gaze. "Just needed a change of scenery," I said. The days in the country passed by at a slow, easy pace. I got used to living with Anna. It was a polite, peaceful coexistence. She was a thoughtful housemate. Worried I'd be bored, she brought over a huge stack of books for me to read. She even managed to find a puppy somewhere that looked almost exactly like the one my grandmother used to have. I knelt down to pet him, a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. Anna just stood there quietly. After a long moment, she asked softly, "James, are you hurting?" Her words sounded so familiar. They pulled me back years, into a memory I'd long forgotten. When I was a kid, the other children in town used to make fun of me. They called me an orphan, a bastard. I was a sensitive, timid kid, so I just found a quiet corner to hide and cry by myself. And every time, Anna would find me. She'd gently pat my head and ask, "James, are you hurting?" Eventually, the other kids started leaving me alone. It wasn't until I saw her corner the ringleader, a boy who used to throw rocks at me, and give him the beating of his life that I understood why. That small, skinny girl had taught herself to fight just to protect me. I think, before I left for New York, I'd been pretty attached to her. I'm not sure how it happened, but somewhere along the way, we just drifted apart. A few days later, Ethan sent me a short video clip. In it, Ava was sitting on the floor of a bar, clutching a bottle of vodka and slurring my name. "James! James!" Oliver stood beside her, his face a mask of frustration. Beneath the video were two texts. "James, when are you coming back? Ava's drunk and making a scene, demanding to see you. We're at the Rose Club, and we can't get her to leave." The Rose Club was one of the Astor's properties. It was one of the most exclusive clubs in the city. Ava went there often. Whenever she drank too much, I was the only one who could coax her into going home. No matter how drunk she was, she always knew it was me. I asked her once, "Aren't you ever afraid you'll go home with the wrong person?" She'd just shake her head and pout. "I'd never mistake you. You're my one and only James." It was small, seemingly insignificant moments like that that had fueled my feelings for her for 12 years. That little sliver of hope was what I had clung to all this time. I texted Ethan back, "Don't contact me about her again." The moment I sent it, my phone started ringing. It was him. I hesitated, then answered. "James, listen, Ava's been in a really bad way lately." He was cut off by a commotion on his end of the line. "Ava, stop it. Give me my phone back." A second later, Ava's slurred voice came through the speaker. "Hello, James. When are you coming to get me? I've been sick, and you didn't even come to see me. I haven't seen you in so long." Her voice trailed off, thick with a drunken, tearful guilt. "James," she whispered, "I miss you." I hung up without another thought. Later that night, I got a friend request on Instagram from Oliver. The message said he had something to show me. I had zero interest in whatever it was, but he was persistent, sending the request over and over again. After the 20th request or so, I finally accepted. He immediately sent a photo. It was Ava, lying in a hotel bed, eyes closed, her hair fanned out around her in a deliberately seductive pose. Oliver was lying next to her. A long block of text followed. "Hey James, Ava and I are together now. I know you have feelings for her, but she just sees you as family. It's a habit. She told me herself that I'm the only one she loves. She only got drunk and called you tonight because she was jealous. I was talking to another girl earlier today, so please don't get the wrong idea." Reading his words, all I felt was a cold, flat indifference. My 12 years of loving her ended right there. The moment she kicked me from the group chat, the love began to die. And letting it go wasn't nearly as hard as I'd always imagined it would be. I replied calmly, "Okay, I wish you both the best." The rain fell on and off for the next few days, and I would make a pot of tea and sit by the window, writing or sketching a notebook. I'd lie on the couch and read, with the little puppy she'd found for me curled up quietly by my feet. I named him Buddy. Over that time, Anna and I grew closer. The only sounds in the house were the rain outside, the soft scratch of her pen on paper, and the rustle of me turning a page. It was the kind of peaceful atmosphere that made you think of phrases like quiet contentment. Suddenly, a frantic knocking at the door broke the silence. It was her next-door neighbor, her face etched with panic. "Anna, your father just collapsed. You have to come quick." Anna froze, her small frame swaying for a second before she bolted out the door like a shot. I ran right after her. Mr. Sullivan had always been so good to my grandmother and me. When she was alive, he was always helping out around the house. Even now, he'd still bring over home-cooked meals for me sometimes. Mr. Sullivan was lying in bed, his face pale and ashen. Anna stood over him, her brow furrowed. "Dad, what's wrong? Should we go to the hospital?" She tried to keep her voice steady, but I could hear it trembling. Mr. Sullivan's eyes flickered to me, standing behind her. He let out a long sigh. "I didn't want to have to tell you this." He beckoned for me to come closer, then pulled a folded paper from under his pillow. "This old body of mine doesn't have much time left," he said, his voice weak. "The only thing I worry about is Anna. And you, James. I know you're a good man. I want to ask you to look after her." The paper was a doctor's report. The diagnosis was clear: terminal cancer. Anna snatched it from his hand, her brow furrowing as she read. She was silent for a long time. "It could be a mistake," she finally said. "We'll get a second opinion." She said the words, but from that day on, a quietness fell over her. When we were children, she was always the one to find me when I was hiding and crying. Now, our roles were reversed. I was the one searching the house for her, finding her wiping away silent tears. I found her on the porch, staring up at the sky, her nose red and her eyes glistening. Seeing her like that made my own chest ache. "It's okay to cry," I said softly. "Holding it in will only make it worse." I sat down beside her. I raised my hand, hesitated, then gently rested it on her head, patting her hair softly, just like she used to do for me when we were kids. It was nearly the end of June, and the summer felt unusually hot and heavy, or maybe that was just our mood. She kept her eyes on the sky, her voice raspy. The reason I came home was because he told me he was sick, but when I got here, he was joking about it. I thought he was just trying to get me to visit. I didn't say anything, knowing she just needed someone to listen. "James," she continued, "thank you for being here. And please, don't pay any attention to what my dad said. I'm not your responsibility. You don't have to feel obligated to me because of him or because we were friends as kids. You shouldn't throw away your life for me." Mr. Sullivan's dying wish was for me to marry his daughter. I stared out at the horizon, saying nothing for a long time. I couldn't quite put a name to what I felt for Anna. Being with her was easy. We could sit in comfortable silence for hours. When I saw her cry, my first instinct was to take her pain away, to make her smile again. The thought of her being my responsibility didn't feel like a burden at all. In fact, there was a quiet part of me that looked forward to it. After a long moment, I heard my own voice say, "Anna, let's get married." Before I turned 14, my parents were strangers I saw only on major holidays. After I moved in with them, they became the kind of parents whose only question was, "Do you have enough money?" I think they loved me in their own way. But after 14 years of absence, they didn't know how to be parents to me. Whenever I saw my mother fussing over my younger brother, fixing his collar, or putting food on his plate, I'd tell myself the same thing. They just don't know how to show it. When I told my mother I was getting married, her only question was about Anna's family. Satisfied with my answer, she gave her blessing. We set the date for a month later. Anna said she wanted to keep it simple, but I refused. I might not be able to give her the most extravagant wedding, but I wanted it to be a proper celebration. If I was going to marry her, I didn't want her to feel like she was settling for anything less than she deserved. We were walking home after finalizing some of the wedding details when I saw it. A blue Pagani Huayra parked in front of the house. Ethan got out, his sharp features looking drawn and tired. He had dark circles under his eyes and a day's worth of stubble on his chin. He must have driven all night to get here. His eyes fell on Anna, and he frowned. "This is the girl you're marrying?" As my best friend, he was the only one I'd told. I nodded. His frown deepened. "James, we need to have a serious talk." Anna, ever perceptive, excused herself to give us some privacy. Ethan watched her walk away, his brow still furrowed. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. My eyes followed his gaze, and I answered in a low voice, "I'm sure." Ethan sighed, his voice softening. "James, marriage isn't a game. You've been in love with Ava for more than a decade. I just don't believe you can fall for someone else this fast. I know Ava hurt you, but you can't turn around and hurt an innocent girl just to get back at her. Ask yourself, man, do you really love this girl?" I was quiet for a moment, thinking about my time with Anna. Our days were simple, but they were peaceful. She was a woman of few words, but every morning, she'd have breakfast waiting for me when I woke up. She had this ridiculous cartoon print apron that was completely at odds with her quiet, elegant demeanor, but somehow she made it look adorable. She'd stand in the kitchen doorway, smiling, and call out, "Time to get up? Breakfast is ready." And Buddy would be at her feet, running in circles and wagging his tail. A girl and her dog, filling the house with a quiet warmth. It was a simple image, but it made everything crystal clear. I turned and put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Don't worry," I said. "I would never hurt Anna. And to answer your question, yes, I do love her." After Ethan left, I threw myself into the wedding preparations. The date was getting closer, and there was still so much to do. Ethan still texted me every few days, sometimes mentioning how Ava was doing. He told me that Oliver had taken those photos of her when she was drunk and used them to blackmail her into marrying him. The whole thing had blown up and even made the tabloids. Old man Astor was furious. He'd forced Ava to step down from her position at the family company and ordered her to stay home and reflect on her actions. Ava had been spoiled her entire life. She'd never had to face any real consequences before. Her mood tanked, and she started drinking heavily again. Whenever she was drunk, she'd start demanding to see me, and no one could talk her out of it. Ethan didn't tell me all this. Dominic did. "James," he'd said, "it's been so long. Can't you just forgive her? Doesn't it bother you at all, seeing her like this?" I didn't answer him. Did I feel bad for her? For 12 years, she knew how I felt. She basked in my affection while she dated guy after guy. She never once stopped to consider how that made me feel. Lately, Ava had been trying everything to get in touch with me, sending friend requests from new accounts, all of which I ignored. She called from different numbers. I blocked them all. If she could cut me out of her life so easily for Oliver, then there was no foundation for even a basic friendship between us. Some wounds just can't be healed. You can't just glue a shattered heart back together. Besides, I had Anna now. About a month later, I saw Ava again. Dominic had texted me, saying he was in the next town over and wanted to meet up on the main shopping street. Before I left the house, I tucked a stack of wedding invitations into my bag to give to him. Back home, the wedding preparations were nearly complete. Mr. Sullivan's health was getting worse by the day, but our upcoming marriage seemed to bring him genuine joy. It was the one bright spot in an otherwise grim time. The main street was decorated with hundreds of red roses, ribbons, and balloons. A couple of teenage girls walked by, chattering excitedly. Wow, some rich guy must be proposing. It's so romantic. I heard it's not a proposal, the other one said. It's a girl making a grand gesture for a guy. There's a whole field of roses up ahead. They were all flown in. Someone saw a plane skywriting this morning. They must be insanely rich. Come on, let's go look. The crowd was surging in the direction of the cafe where I was supposed to meet Dominic. I frowned. Something felt off. I'd heard a few days ago that the Astors had paid Oliver $5 million to disappear. He'd taken the money and run. I adjusted the strap of my bag and pushed through the crowd toward the cafe. Sure enough, the sea of flowers was right outside. The street was completely blocked by onlookers. I could hear girls in the crowd exclaiming, "The girl in the middle with the flowers is gorgeous. And the guys with her are so hot. I love the one on the right. He has that bad boy look. It looks like the cover of a romance novel. The beautiful heroine in a field of flowers, surrounded by her loyal protectors. I wonder what the guy looks like. He must be something special for a girl like that to make such a public display." Dominic was standing on the edge of the crowd. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, and he grabbed my arm, pulling me forward. Make way, make way. The man of the hour is here." The crowd parted to let us through. At the end of the path, in the center of the sea of flowers, stood Ava. She was holding a huge bouquet of Juliet roses, her eyes shining with a mixture of nerves and hope. Dominic let go of my arm and shoved me forward. In a way, his devotion to her over the years was almost more admirable than my own. "James," Ava called out, a blush creeping up her cheeks. The crowd started cheering as she walked toward me. Behind her, our old friends were watching, all of them grinning like idiots. All of them except Ethan. He was leaning against a wall, arms crossed, a smirk on his face like he was watching a movie. He caught my eye and raised an eyebrow. The girls in the crowd went wild. Ava bit her lip, a little embarrassed, and held the bouquet out to me. "James, I'm so sorry," she said. "I know I treated you terribly. It wasn't until you were gone that I realized how much you actually mean to me. More than I ever knew. Can you please give me one more chance? Let me make it up to you." I looked down, unzipped my bag, and pulled out an invitation. I handed it to her. "I'm getting married next week," I said. "I hope you can be there." Ava froze. The expensive bouquet slipped from her grasp, the petals scattering across the pavement. "James, stop," she stammered, her eyes welling up with tears. "Stop joking. It's not funny." I ignored her and started handing out the other invitations to our friends. They were all speechless. "Hope to see you there," I said to each of them. I'd only told my parents and Ethan that I was getting married. Clearly, no one had seen this coming. Ava lunged forward and snatched an invitation out of Dominic's hand. She ripped it to shreds and threw the pieces on the ground. Her eyes were red as she glared at me. "I told you," she seethed. "It's not a funny joke." I hadn't expected such a violent reaction. Tears streamed down her face as she grabbed the rest of the invitations from my hand and tore them to pieces. When they were all destroyed, she grabbed my arm, trying to pull me away from the crowd. I pulled my arm free. A small, cold smile touched my lips. "Like I said, I have a wedding to plan. My fiancé is waiting for me. I don't have time for these games." 2 days later, Ava bought the house next door to mine. Her flashy, limited edition Koenigsegg looked completely absurd parked in the driveway of the modest little house. She started waiting for me outside my house every day, begging me to give her another chance. Finally, I lost my patience. "I'm getting married, Ava," I said, my voice cold. "Leave me alone." She bit her lip, fresh tears springing to her eyes. She slowly sank to the ground, burying her face in her hands. "James, I know I was wrong," she sobbed. "Please, just give me one more chance. Please don't be so cruel." The proud, untouchable Ava Astor groveling on the pavement. I watched her cry until she was gasping for breath, and I felt absolutely nothing. Cruel? Fine. I could be crueler. I leaned down slightly. "I am sorry, Ava. Your being around makes Anna uncomfortable. Let's not talk anymore." I threw her own words back at her, word for word. The wedding day arrived. A line of cars was waiting to take us to the church, stretching all the way down the block. As I was about to get into the lead car, I saw her. Ava was standing on the sidewalk, wearing a pristine white wedding gown, her makeup perfect. I pretended I didn't see her and moved to get into the car. She rushed forward and grabbed my arm. Her voice, normally so clear and bright, was raw and raspy. "James," she croaked, "are you doing this just to punish me?" Her eyes were red, but she managed a weak, desperate smile. "You can punish me any way you want. Just please, don't marry her." I looked at her, my voice perfectly calm. "This isn't about punishing you, Ava. I'm marrying Anna because I want to marry her." Tears streamed down her face, and her grip on my sleeve tightened. "But you don't love her, do you?" I gently pried her fingers from my arm. A faint smile played on my lips. If I didn't love her, why would I be marrying her? After all this time, Ava, you should know me better than that. Without a second glance, I got into the car. As the motorcade pulled away, I could see her in the rearview mirror, a solitary figure in a white dress, left standing in the middle of the street. The whole thing felt like a bad dream. Married life wasn't all that different from before. We moved back into Mr. Sullivan's house to take care of him. Anna took the bed, and I slept on a mattress on the floor. I wanted to give her space, to respect her feelings until I knew for sure that she felt the same way I did. Ethan still called me from time to time, just to check in. He never mentioned Ava's name again. I read in the news that her father had been forced out of his position on the board of his own company. Oliver was vicious, but not very smart. He'd stolen confidential project bids from Ava and sold them to a rival company. The Astor Corporation took a massive financial hit. Mr. Astor had been forced to sell off a huge portion of his own stock to cover the losses. He managed to get Oliver sent to prison, but he lost his controlling interest in the company. The whole mess was Ava's fault, and the other shareholders, who had been looking for an excuse for years, banded together and forced him out. I read the article, sighed, and didn't look for any more details. In a way, it felt like justice. The father paying for the sins of the child. Mr. Sullivan didn't make it through the winter. Anna handled all the funeral arrangements herself. She was so composed, almost detached. It was heartbreaking to watch. Her father had raised her all by himself. I couldn't imagine the bond they must have shared. Maybe because she'd lost her own mother, she'd felt a special kinship with the boy who was always being teased for having no parents at all. In the 6 months we'd been married, it was the first time I had ever truly held her. She curled in my chest, her body racked with uncontrollable sobs. "James," she cried, "I don't have a father anymore." I held her, gently rubbing her back, fighting back my own tears. "You still have me," I whispered. "I'll always be here for you, Anna, for the rest of our lives. We'll get through it together." We ended up staying in that little Georgia town much longer than we'd planned. But now, it was time to go back to New York. As I was packing our bags, Buddy came trotting over to me. He had an old notebook in his mouth, which he dropped at my feet. It looked like he dug it out from under the bed. Curious, I picked it up and opened it. It was a diary. Page after page was filled with her neat, careful handwriting, a quiet, patient record of the years. All this time, without me ever knowing, this quiet, gentle girl had been in love with me. Anna finished packing her own suitcase and came over to see if I needed help. Her eyes immediately fell on the open diary in my hands. "You found it," she said, her voice a mixture of shyness and anxiety. I looked up at her, blinking back the sudden wetness in my eyes, and smiled. "What a coincidence," I said. "I love you too." Maybe we didn't have a grand, dramatic love story. But marriage isn't about grand gestures. It's built on 1,000 tiny, quiet moments. And who's to say a quiet, steady love can't be the answer you've been looking for all your life? True love isn't about waiting for someone to notice you. It's about two people choosing each other. You have to be brave enough to walk away from a past where you weren't valued to find a person who sees only you. It's not about revenge. It's about finally learning to value yourself.